Hey everybody, hi again. This is Dom Nicastro, managing editor of CMSWire, here with our latest LinkedIn Live, talking all about CX and all that is customer experience. And we're joined today by a very special guest because not everyone's special. You're special because you're a CMSWire contributor, meaning you write articles for us. Thought
Yes,
leadership.
that's why. That's why.
Yes, exactly. That makes you special, nothing else. But you are Brianna Langley, regional CX strategist at Waste Connections. How's it going?
It's good. Good. It's good to talk to you again. How are you?
Good, good. Yeah, no, so happy to have you on board. I mean, that contributor program that we do it's the bread and butter of our website. It's our
Yeah.
differentiator. It makes us us because we have people coming in from the trenches, practicing CX, practicing voice of the customer, customer experience, digital marketing. They're doing the job, like you. So
Great.
to have you come in, I mean, I'm a journalist. I can't tell you how to do the job. I can present you people like Brianna to tell you how to do the job. So thank you for joining that network of contributors. We are super psyched to have you.
Yeah, no problem. I'm gonna go ahead and apologize to everyone out there. My voice right now, I've got that annual yearly like change in the weather sinus infection going on. So I hope I'm at least enough on my A game to make this worth it. But
I know, and I had a little tickle going on too in my throat. So this is like the sick crew today. At least we're matching, you
high
know.
energy, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I had to cancel another like contributor interview that I do usually today, and I said, "Listen, I got to cancel this. I'm just not at my best voice. But if you do see me on LinkedIn Live, don't be offended. I have to keep that because we got Brianna Langley here. I'm not going to cancel with her. Her time is precious. So here we go. Um, let's start with just something about you. Your role, your company, and kind of
Sure.
how you landed there, and in your CX journey, if you will.
Yeah, oh man, that could be like a whole half-hour interview in and of itself. But I'm at Waste Connections, as you said. I work for the eastern region of the company, so that spans from Nashville down to Charleston, South Carolina, and then up through like New York and New England and all that. So it's quite an expansive piece of territory. So I'm, as you know, because we've communicated in the past, I am on the road quite a bit, which I don't mind. It keeps things interesting, and we have I want to say around 150 districts in the East right now. So, and growing like every day, it seems like. So it's a good time to be in this industry, and it's a good time to be in CX specifically. And how I got into it, yeah. So Waste Connections. I don't know how much the viewers of this might know about the waste and recycling industry, but we are the third largest waste and recycling hauler in North America. So, yeah, and it's broad, it's a lot. But it's funny that you mentioned that you're a journalist because that's kind of how I started my career. Actually, I don't think
Yeah,
you knew that.
yeah.
Yeah, so I went to school for journalism, and I started out doing some, internships and the regular thing. I think pretty early on, I knew journalism was not what it used to be. You've taken it and created something wonderful, Dom.
Hey,
I
thank
wish
you.
every journalist had a niche like you do, but the typical like news broadcast media. I wasn't very interested in that when I really got into it. So then I springboarded into marketing. My first big girl job out of school was in marketing. And then I experienced and explored PR for a little bit. So kind of both sides of those coins. And now I am in customer experience for an industry I truly never thought I would be working in.
Yeah.
But it's a very recession-proof industry, and CX, as you know, and as most of your readers probably know, is never been more in demand. So I consider myself very fortunate.
Yeah, and it's a great point about, I never knew I'd get into CX because I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, you're just not saying like I'm going to get a master's in customer experience. There might be some similarities, some parallels,
Right.
some skills that you develop in college or in a master's, stuff
Absolutely.
like that. But I think I am seeing, like, we had a CMSWire CX Leaders of the Year nominations. By the way, nominate yourself next year. I'll have your team do it for you because you'll be in the running. And we had those awards last week at our conference, our DX Summit, which is now going to be CMSWire Connect down in Austin.
Ooh, I love Austin.
May, yeah. So what I'm getting at is, like, I think they're starting to have starting to see some programs, masters in CX or masters in customer experience. I think I heard something like that. It might be a niche thing that one college is doing, but at least we're seeing that.
I think it'd be awesome. Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, you just heard my patchwork of a background. I mean, it's a little bit of everything, and it's somehow mixed into this witch's brew that is CX, which, lucky for me, but not everyone has the opportunity to find this field the way that I did. So I think having it, kind of be its own thing that people can pursue, especially collegiately, would be awesome.
Yeah. If I told my relatives, Brianna, in the Boston area that I write about CX, the question I get is, well, so what's that? Like the call center? Like, when I call 1-800 number, like when I call like Sprint's 1-800 number, that customer experience. Yeah, it's part of it.
Right. Right.
Not the wrong answer.
Yeah. I usually get like social media.
Yeah.
Like, okay. I mean, I guess that's part of it, but that's like such a small segment.
Or if you're going to the really older generation, like bless them, my grandmother and stuff, it's like, oh, you're on the computer. That's what that is? Okay. That's what they think social media, my grandmother would say, is the computer. That's what she calls it.
The computer. I love
it. So before we get into it, we have a top 5 list here on how to really embrace CX in your organization, get people to buy into it, get executives to buy into CX strategies, resources, give you money, all that good stuff. But before, I wanted to, ask you, who are your customers in your organization, like in your industry?
That's a fun question. Can you think of a single person who doesn't need waste and recycling, or a single business who does, right? So that's kind of been, I think in the beginning of me working here, that was a big learning curve for me because, of course, I came from the marketing and public relations world. And in both of those jobs, we had very specific target audiences that we were trying to reach. So the blessing and the challenge, I think, when you're in a utilities industry or a services industry like waste and recycling, is how do you market to everybody, right? So it's unique. It's not quite as formulaic, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. But if you can break your audience down into segments and then create specific journeys and specific plans for each of those segments, which is quite a bit of work, you have a winning recipe. So we do a lot of commercial business. Okay. So I would say our 2 main lines of business would be residential and commercial, but then within those 2 main lines of business, we have a lot of, sub lines of business. So we have commercial could be temporary roll off. So someone's, cleaning out the office and just needs to rent a dumpster for a day, right? Or it could be consistent waste and recycling pickup, or it could be permanent roll off. So someone, usually a big manufacturing company or a plant, a factory of some sort, will have the big dumpsters that they have permanently at their site, right? And then we have our residentials, which anyone who works in CX knows are always the most vocal of the line of businesses, I think, that any industry works with. Bless them, we love them. But we have so we'll have municipalities and HOAs, and both of those are typically contracted. So we'll, have a 5-year contract with one city or one municipality, and we, for the next 5 years, have that contract, and no one else can pick up the garbage there. But the single sub customers are those customers who live in unincorporated townships, counties, that kind of thing, and they actually get to pick. So it's very competitive. The whole thing is extremely competitive, but single sub residential and commercial lines of business are highly competitive because they can, pick and choose whereas the residentials who are under a contract under their municipality or their HOA don't necessarily get to. So it's fun. It's real fun.
Yeah, and well, fun as in a lot of work, because I can imagine
it's not boring.
No,
Never boring.
I mean, to do that line of like persona work, right, and targeting customers and learning about the segmentations, that's such a wide range.
Yeah, well, and I think it's like, I mean, I know it's new for every industry, but I think it's especially new for the utilities, because I don't think there's ever been a time in history where we've had this much competition going on for utility industries, right? You have these, I mean, think about SpaceX. I don't think NASA ever expected to have competition, right? So you have all these private companies popping up everywhere, and, that's great. I think competition is a beautiful thing, but yeah, it's CX is, it's overwhelming in the best way.
Yeah, I can just see the NASA execs when these companies emerging, like, hey, Jimmy, someone cares about going to the moon again instead of us. What can we do about that?
Right.
So let's get into it. Let's get into our top 5, ways to convince your executives that CX matters. So number one, show the ROI of CX efforts. Let's start there, Brianna. What do you got on that one?
Yeah, so I'll admit that one's kind of a gimme, but it's true. I mean, you kind of have to start with that, right? You've got to build something to show to the execs. And that involves a lot of number crunching. I find that a lot of business leaders, at least in my industry, are really interested in hard facts and figures. I mean, qualitative data as a marketer and as a storyteller, as a journalist, I think it's beautiful and I think it's useful in its own right. But you got to do some number crunching when you get up to the, C-level executives.
Yeah.
I think that what they really want to see, like more than, I think CSAT and NPS and things like that, those are really important scores to keep track of. But more than that, I think that numbers you should focus on, or metrics, formulas you should focus on, are going to be the ones that measure retention of customers or retention of frontline employees. That's a big one right now. So along those same lines, customer churn. Right? So are your customers downgrading service, and why are they? And how do we fix that? And then revenue. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about revenue, right? So when I first came into this role, I was very clear. I can come up with the most brilliant I haven't, but I can come up with the most brilliant strategies ever as far as marketing and customer experience goes. Mm-hmm. If you don't see a bottom line change in the revenue and some growth there, then what's it for, right? And that's the way you got to think, and because that's the way that the executive business leaders think.
Yeah.
So if you can find, something that you're doing that ties directly to revenue, and it can be like online storefront sales, right? Like it doesn't have to be anything crazy, but they eat that up. And I'm going to give a shameless plug, a little teaser. Sure. I have a whole article in CMSWire about CX formulas. So yes. I'm not gonna give any away here, but if anyone's interested, definitely go check that out.
Yeah, Brianna Langley. You just have to search her on CMSWire or Brianna Langley CMSWire on Google. Boom, her whole profile comes up. All the articles she's written. I think you have 2 in the book so far for us.
Well, 3 tomorrow, right?
Oh, yeah, coming. That's right. 3rd one coming out. Good tease. You're getting good at my job too.
I got you.
Teasing the articles. So. All right. Well, that's yeah. Like you said, everyone knows it, but it's almost like how, right? How as a CX leader can I show ROI? And you gave some good concrete examples. Do you have any examples, recent ones off the top of your head? And you don't have to get into company specifics, obviously, but like a broad, concrete example that you've done yourself to show ROI in your company.
Yeah, I annoy people.
Yeah,
I put my team's progress in front of everyone every chance I get. So anytime I'm asked to present, whether it's to our sales managers, because we have meetings every year as a company with just the office managers and just the sales managers and so on and so forth. So anytime I'm asked to present, anywhere at any time. I always try to throw in, oh, here are the accomplishments we've had so far. And when people see the, 42% increase in mobile app adoption, I mean, that's exciting. It's exciting to everyone to see that.
And especially if it can tie to like a business objective too, because I love when I can do that. I love watching that trickle down effect of business objective, high level goal, and then it goes to my team, and then it goes to the team below. So I love when it can kind of trickle down like that. I mean, we can put our own spin on things too and be creative within that business objective and how we accomplish it. So, all right, cool. So let's move on. Number 2, share success stories from other companies in your industry. So that's an interesting one. What's up with that?
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. So one of the companies I've worked for, I'm not going to name names here, but I do have a good example for this one. We had developed it was actually a mobile app, funny enough. And I think it was 2 months later, our biggest competitor came out with a mobile app. Mm-hmm. And it was like, okay, so, that same logic can work in reverse. I'm a big proponent of using the little green monster to your advantage when you can, right? So it's kind of tricky, but there's a lot of public facing information out there. There's, interviews, press releases, all this stuff that other companies in your industry are doing that they're proud of, that they want to promote just like you do. And if you can find those success stories for other companies when it comes to CX efforts, it can definitely raise some eyebrows in the executive C-suite. So.
And also, it seems like in our own organization, we're always watching too. We're always trying to see what the other guys are doing, and let's do it. Let's do it better. Let's steal the idea and let's do it better.
I found that the one thing that business leaders tend to care about just as much as revenue growth is keeping up with the competitors. So if you can take that and use it to your advantage, show your ROI, and then also show, oh, and by the way, they're getting really successful with this mobile app thing. I think that's a recipe for a winning strategy for sure.
Okay. All right, cool. Moving along here. Number 3 ways to get your executives to buy into CX. So number 3, involve executive level team members in the planning process. Now that sounds tricky. I'd love to see how you pull that one off.
I told you I'm annoying. So everybody at corporate knows my name because I email them. So if I'm working on something that revolves around recycling education, I'm going to go to the director of recycling and say, hey, could you just look at this for me? Like, I just want to get your feedback. I'm not asking a ton of work from you or effort or even a ton of time. But I would love some advice, just some suggestions from your professional point of view, right? When you do that, it's really, really hard for people not to feel personally invested in the project moving forward, right? Because they've put their eyes on it, they've given suggestions and feedback. And so even, like I said, even if it's not you're not asking them to do it, you're just asking for advice, right? So just involving them, I think, in that initial process, they tend to follow through because I think it piques their interest early on. And you want to make it difficult for them to not feel personally invested in something.
Yeah. And then you have to be comfortable with the fact that you're not always going to get the involvement, I'm sure. Because unless you have 100% success rate, you tell me.
No, it depends. I mean, it depends on the department and the idea.
They're getting pulled in a heck of a lot of directions.
Sure. I would say they also are just busy, right? So I don't think it's bad, at least not in my experience, to remind them. Maybe just, hey, just putting this to the top of your inbox, a few weeks down the road. Wondered if you had a chance to look at it yet. I, again, would really love your feedback on this. That's usually the second time around, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I totally forgot about this. Yes, I would love to look at this, blah, blah, blah. That's where I found most of my success personally.
Yeah. Sounds like you personally are also walking the walk. You mentioned earlier you travel a lot around the around the country, seeing for yourself what operations are doing, seeing what's happening. And I think it's so crucial to put yourself in the customer's shoes every now and again when you can.
I mean, I think like when it comes down to it, we're not to minimize what CX professionals do, because it's a heck of a lot, but we are the liaison between the front line and the customers and the decision makers, right? So at the end of the day, you have to present yourself with the confidence that you know what you're talking about, because if you're a CX practitioner, you know what you're talking about. And so I think it's all about presentation as well.
Yeah. It's the whole undercover boss theory, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You gotta get out there and see what's happening on the front lines. You'll never know if you just try to put yourself in the customer's shoes every now and again. It's like impossible to do it weekly or daily or whatever. But if executives can, talking about executive buy-in, if more executives can get closer to where the customer feels, that would be a win.
So that actually is a segue into my next point. I didn't mean to cut you off, but that's a really good segue.
Is this for number 4? Is this number 4?
No. This is still number 3.
Your next point. Okay, go ahead.
So involving executive level team members. If and I don't know if every organization does this, but I think most probably still do. If you have like customer feedback suggestion groups or focus groups or whatever the case may be, every once in a while, even if it's virtual like this, every once in a while, just invite an executive leader to sit in on it, right? They don't have to contribute. They don't have to participate. They don't have to say anything, but just inviting them to observe and listen, I think that goes a long way. And it's an opportunity they don't get very often. So I think you would be surprised at how many jump at that.
That's excellent. If they can find the time to do that, that's direct to customer, right?
Exactly.
Direct to consumer, as they call it. But that's crazy to get that involvement. That's like the gold star right there of walking in the customer's shoes. If you're actually sitting literally in the meeting,
you just have to make it super easy for them. Like, make sure they know you don't have to prepare anything. You don't have to say anything unless you want to. You could have it on in the background. You could have your camera off doing whatever, but just, I would like for you to hear this, because I think it's something that's really important.
Nice. All right, and this point number 4, we're on number 4 of 5 here. Yeah. This wraps nicely into the whole ideas you've been talking about the whole time here. Communicate consistently about progress and successes with CX. How do you get that done?
Yeah. So I was the first, and actually I still am the only, of my position here at this company. So this was something that I had to kind of look into really, really early on in my time with Waste Connections. My advice, honestly, be polite, be likable, but also don't be afraid to be a little bit annoying. Okay. So you're never going to get the traction that you want for your initiatives unless you constantly remind people that you exist and that CX is a thing. So what I like to do, I know I mentioned the presentation thing. Definitely always put at least a table or something showing some kind of progress and every chance you get, anytime you're talking to, your boss or a group of people, anybody. I also would recommend sending out quarterly reports to the whole leadership team, because quarterly it's it's not going to be that often. It's not going to be that intrusive or whatever. But if you send out these progress reports without even being asked, and I don't know, honestly, truly, I don't know any business leader who doesn't want to see progress, right? So focus on the success. If you try something and it doesn't work, I wouldn't include that in your progress report, right? So focus on and you can, there's always low hanging fruit, right? So just an example, but a little bit of marketing around an online storefront, that will shoot revenue up, right? So you can say, oh, wow, we've seen a 400% increase in revenue this month. That's crazy. Just thought you guys would want to know. This is so exciting.
Yeah.
If you do something like that once a quarter, you're going to start getting some traction.
Yeah. And I love the show them the numbers, show them what's happening, and remind them how it's being successful. I also like the approach of sharing the small wins. Like for us, it would be when I'm at my well, we haven't been in person in 3 years, but when we have, seeing people at our conference networking, like that's how we market ourselves. We're like the networking company. We want to bring CX leaders together to have them talk to each other. When I overhear or see two CX people talking at our conference, like that's a win to me. And I love sharing that. And or one person talked to one of our presenters because they found their presentation awesome and they want to connect for future discussions. So, man, that is like, showing those small wins consistently.
Well, and when leaders know that they can trust you with the small things, that encourages them to trust you with some bigger initiatives.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you want to go big, which I know we all do, you're going to need resources and you're going to need corporate backing. And so really driving home these small wins over and over and over again. Next time you go to a budget meeting and you ask for something, odds are it's going to be a lot easier for you to get.
Yep. All right, let's spend a few minutes on number 5, closing things out here with Brianna Langley. Okay, the last one, encourage an overall customer-centric culture throughout your organization. Brianna, what are you talking about? I thought every organization is embedded in a customer-centric culture. That's not the case.
Oh, yeah. Well, it could be on paper, but if you look at the prior 4 tips that we've just shared, I doubt every organization out there is doing every one of those things, right? And I'll admit this one's a little bit squishier and a little bit broader and more conceptual. But I think, first of all, if you're really focusing on those first 4 things that we talked about, this is going to happen naturally. This is going to start to build and grow on its own. But even, things like sending out an employee pulse survey to frontliners or developing some kind of insight sharing program where frontliners can make suggestions based on their very real experience with customer issues. And incentivizing the right things, I think that's a big one. I think that can contribute to an overall culture of customer love and customer satisfaction. So, for example, instead of incentivizing our CSRs by having them, how closely did you stick to the script? Maybe incentivize them on customer sentiment or on problem resolution or something like that. And even monetarily, like make it tied to their commission or however your system is set up. I think that really putting your money where your mouth is, when it comes to all the organizations that purport to, be a flagship of customer experience. And some of them are. You've really got to back it up, though, with what you're incentivizing in your front lines.
Yeah, we need to empower those contact center agents, those call center people. They are the heroes of the organization. We need to go beyond measuring them by resolution times. It's all important. Have to do it.
Sure.
But
yes,
what about sending a company email that is a recording of a conversation? Look at what Jennifer just did. Listen to how she talked to this customer.
What a creative solution she came up with. Yeah.
That to me empowers them and helps create this customer centric. Like, look, this is what we want in an employee here. We want these types of conversations with customers.
And one thing I like too is developing some, training programs or development materials and taking those to the front line. That's one of the reasons why I'm on the road so much, but taking them to the front line and really going through it with the employees and focusing on things like empathy and creative problem resolution and things like that. And then sending those to corporate too, like making sure that everyone from the top to, the front line has seen all of this. I think it's important.
Awesome. Brianna Langley, we have reached our end here. So sad.
I know.
Now you can go take care of yourself because, all the
I know. I'm so sorry. Usually my voice is so much stronger.
I'm with you. I muted a few times so I could cough. But listen, it's been great. Tomorrow, Out the Door on CMSWire, The Intersection of PR and CX from Brianna Langley. She's a CMSWire contributor. Can't thank you enough for that. And it's been great catching up with you and listen to the art of CX and how you connect that and get buy-in. It's been a fascinating talk. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to talk to you always.
All right, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Stay with us. Plenty more LinkedIn Lives coming up on CMSWire. Follow us, and this is where you get the scoop. Thanks, everybody.